What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a great video coming up for you. Everyone seems to be really liking my two videos on the Nike Zoom Streak LT4 and the Saucony Type A9, and so I thought I'd do a comparison video. Both of these two shoes are traditional racing flats. They both have very low stack heights and are made basically just to go fast. They're not really made for going long. The longest I would probably go in them is, I believe I said 50K on trails or dirt, but like half marathon on the roads, and 20 miles on trails or dirt, or half marathon on the roads, I think. It's just, they are so thin that I wouldn't take them super long, but that's not what they're for. They are for going fast, for your workouts, for your fast races, and just running fast in general. So let's get started, I guess. Okay guys, first let's start with the stats of these two shoes. Both are $90 on Running Warehouse, and both are a 4mm drop. The Nike Zoom Streak LT4 has stack heights of 22 in the heel and 18 in the forefoot, while the Saucony Type A9 has stack heights of 17 in the heel and 13 in the forefoot. The Saucony Type A9 weighs 5.9 ounces in a men's size 9, the standard size for weight, while the Nike Air Zoom Streak LT4 weighs just 5 ounces in the standard size. Now, next up, let's go through it like we would during a review, upper, down. So first, for the uppers, the Nike Air Zoom Streak LT3, I'm just gonna call it the Streak, has a much thinner upper. It's a single layer mesh, so you can see right through it, while the Saucony Type A9 has a much thicker mesh. It's still translucent, but you definitely cannot see through it. The Saucony Type A9 also has a bunch of different overlays. Here, the black stripes, and it just in general has a thicker upper, while the only overlays on the Streak are the swoosh logos, and in general the Streak has just less of an upper. It's a lot more minimal, while the Saucony Type A9, it still has a very minimal racing flat type upper, but it's definitely a bit more there. It's got a bit more support. And for the heel counters, the Saucony Type A9 definitely has a bit more of a heel counter, while the Air Zoom Streak does not. I never really have any issues with the heels, so I don't really care if there is a heel counter, but it's definitely something to take into account if you want a little bit more support around the heel or have issues with heel lockdown. The tongue of the Streak is made of the same mesh that the upper is, up until the top little tab for you to pull on, which is very thin. It's paper thin. There's like nothing there, while the Saucony Type A9 definitely does have some padding here on the tongue, even though it's still a traditional race flat type tongue. Now for the lockdown system over the top of the foot and the midfoot, there's a pretty similar system in both. In the Saucony Type A9, you have these fabric loops that come out from down the midsole that hook the laces, and that helps you get locked down, and so it sort of creates like a gusseted tongue sort of effect. And here you can see the fabric that connects up into these loops. Similarly, you have these loops here in the not the Type A9, the Zoom Streak, that come and are connected here by this fabric in the upper. In general, the uppers are both very minimal, racing flat uppers, even though the Saucony Type A9 definitely has a bit more support and more material there on top. Okay, next up we have the midsole. The midsole in both is fairly similar. They're both just regular EVA midsoles. In the Streak, there is a Nike Air Zoom unit here in the heel, and there's also this plastic shank that adds the rigidity of the shoe to make it just more rigid and snappier. If you want to see a previous video where I cut open the previous version of this shoe to expose the shank, that'll be linked in the description. In the Saucony Type A9, the midsole is pretty similar. It's just regular EVA. There's nothing super special there. It's just a regular racing flat midsole. I like both of them, but I definitely feel like the shank plus the air zoom unit makes the streak feel a bit livelier and faster, as opposed to the just regular EVA of the Type A9, which does feel a little bit dead after running in the streak. They're both great midsoles, but I definitely prefer the midsole of the streak. In general, the Type A9 is a lot more flexible because of the shank. The shank is going to keep it more rigid, as opposed to the flexibleness of the Type A9. Okay, next up, let's move on to the outsole. They both have pretty similar outsoles. You've got some rubber here in the heel, an exposed midfoot, and a forefoot that is covered in rubber, basically because you're going to be striking, or at least you should be striking about here in the shoes when you're racing or running fast. If you do heel strike, you got to walk between reps. Here are the little rubber patches in the back, but you shouldn't really be walking a ton in these. These are for running fast. In general, I feel like the rubber here with the grid pattern is a lot more grippy than the rubber here on the Saucony with the zigzag pattern. But honestly, I haven't really had any issues with grip on either of these. I do my workouts on grass at some soccer fields, and I really have not had an issue with either. They both work just great, but if I had to choose for a muddy race, it would definitely be these, just because the lugs are a bit deeper. I feel like both of the outsole rubbers are pretty durable. These have had over 100 miles, and it's still holding up really well. There's basically no wear at all on the rubber, a little bit on the exposed foam here, but really nothing. I think these are both gonna last you a long time. The midsole is not gonna die out anytime soon, and just in general, these are gonna be more durable shoes just because you're not looking for a ton of cushion in them. So if you had something like a daily trainer where the cushion sort of died, you would have a lot harder of a time feeling good in that shoe, versus these where there's really not a lot of cushion there in the first place for you to notice going away. Overall, I think you could probably tell that I definitely like the Zoom Streak LT4 better. I just think it's snappier, faster, and it's lighter. But I still really like this shoe. It's a great shoe. I'm still going to be pulling it out for a lot of my workouts. It's definitely more flexible, and if that's something you would prefer, definitely go for this one, because this one is a more rigid shoe. But if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. If you like this video or want to see more like it, please subscribe, maybe like this video. Check out my other videos, my 2 reviews of these 2 shoes, my first impression of the Streak and my full review of the Type A9 are going to be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll see you next video, I guess. I've got a pretty epic run coming up this weekend, so hopefully you guys can see that on this channel. If I forget to film, you're not gonna see it. But if I do film, it's gonna be a cool video. Okay,